Hey guys, Russ here with bishopswest.com, continuing my series of just a few of the things that I like about Bitwig Studio. And today I wanted to talk about sidechaining. I've kind of touched on it a little bit in the past few videos, but today I'm going to continue that and maybe go a little bit more in depth. Give me just a sec, I need to adjust my audio here. Sorry about that. So anyways, yeah, I wanted to go in depth a little bit more on what sidechaining is and how you can achieve that in Bitwig Studio. So just to explain sidechaining, I'm sure most of you watching this are familiar with it, but all it is saying I'm taking the signal from one track and using that to affect another track. In modern music, it's used all over the place. The big thing is when you want to have your kick drum stand out more in a track, you don't want your bass conflicting with that. And so instead of having them go against each other, you say, okay, when the kick drum hits for that one moment, I'm going to lower the volume using compression of the bass track so that when the kick hits, it lowers the volume of the bass track, and when the kick is done, then the bass track, the level rises back up. So that's all that sidechaining is doing. It's just saying use something from one track to affect another track. It can be used, I've seen it used for compression, for EQ. I'm sure there are all different kinds of things that you could use it with. So to show you how to do it in Bitwig, there are, as far as the routing goes, there are probably 3 different ways that I can think of off the top of my head that you can achieve that pretty easily. The first is just to take a track and down here add the compressor. Probably the dynamics compressor is the easiest one, and use that with the sidechain signal to do that sidechain compression. The second way is to put this track into a group, and then you can see that's what I've done here. Use the group with and have the sidechain compression, the device on the group track. And the third way that I've started out doing, actually, and I decided I don't like it anymore, is to set up an effects track down here and then use the sidechain compression with that. So you can see here I've got the dynamics on this track, on this effects track. And so then what I would have to do is take the signal that I want to compress, that I want to be compressed whenever the kick, what we call the trigger, hits. And I would have to, if you look over here in the routing, I would have to take this routing and set it to this, what I call the sidechain compress effects track. Okay, and then of course the effects track just routes directly to the master. It's kind of like setting up a bus, but Bitwig doesn't have quote-unquote buses, so you would use the effects track to do the same thing. Coming from a different DAW from Cakewalk, that's the way I would have done it in Cakewalk, is use that bus. But for our purposes, I think probably the easiest way is to use this group. The reason I like that is because you can have more than one track in this group. Just like in Cakewalk, I would have several tracks going to that bus, and then from the bus to the main mix track. Here, I'm going to have several tracks within this group, and then this group will go, of course, directly to either whatever group it's included in or to the master bus. So let's look at that a little bit. Just to let you listen, I just put up my Zeta plus 2 with just a basic sine tone. So this is what it sounds like. Horribly exciting, I know. So from there, what I decided to do was, okay, I'm going to have my drum track. So this is what my drums sound like. Okay, so it's got just, it's a shaker, a clap, and a kick. I don't want it to be triggering everything. I just want the kick to trigger that compression in this group up here. So if you look in my first example here, I've got the dynamics device, which is just a compression. The the major difference from the compressor plugin device, I have to get used to saying that, is that it's got this sidechain here input, the sidechain input. So what I've done is I said, okay, drums, my chill wave kit, drum machine chains, and I chose the kick pre. Again, like I talked about before in a different video, you do this so that if you lower the volume of the kit, the drums, or if you mute them for part of the song, that kick is still coming through. Even though it's muted, it's pre, and so all those volume and mute changes won't affect what it's doing as for our purposes here. Okay, so to let you listen what that sounds like, let's just get my loop over here. Okay, and if you focus here, you can see, oops, turn that off. You can see that it's affecting the signal. It's decreasing the signal dramatically in this case. Okay, you can see I've got my ratio all the way to infinity. Got a little bit of a knee, but not much. And then my attack, it's not super fast, but you know, mid release, you know, mid to, you can adjust that to taste if you want a really slow release. You can get it so it never goes all the way back up to full. Right. Kind of just depends on what you want to achieve as far as the sound goes. Okay, so that's the first way to do it. Just taking what I would call the traditional input from a kick drum and using that as your trigger. I've heard the argument that people don't like that necessarily because sometimes you'll have different kicks and some will be very short, like this one is fairly short, but you could have some that are really long, like 808s or whatever, that kind of drone out for a while, and you don't want your bass compressed for that whole time. You still just want to let that transient part of the kick kind of push through, and then let the bass come in and I guess complement the kick for the rest of it. So a way to achieve that is to ignore the audio completely and instead just use a MIDI trigger. And that's what I'm doing on this second one here. It's the same device, but, and this is important, the device input is set to nothing. If you leave it to the kick, then this won't affect it. It'll still be waiting for that device input. So what I've done instead is I've inserted this modulator, the note sidechain, and the note sidechain allows it to take MIDI as the modulator on it. And so I did that. I took the MIDI from this clip here, and you can see you just choose whatever you want here. And then I adjusted the attack, the decay set to 0, sustain is way up, and then my release is not all the way down, but fairly quick. And so if I use that, all you're going to hear is the bass, because this MIDI isn't set to do anything except be the trigger for this. Okay, so you can see here visually, if you can't hear it, I'm sure you can hear it, but if you can't, it's ducking the signal completely. It's taking it all the way down. Okay. Same thing for that. You know, you can adjust maybe my release. Yeah, it doesn't affect it that much. Oh, because it's, well, it's hard to explain, but because of the way the signal is routing, that's not going to affect it so much. It's going to be more about the signal going into it. Yeah, look at that. It's interesting the way that this affects the waveform too. A little bit quicker there. So something to note on this, the velocity does affect it. So if you take the velocity down, it's going to have less of an impact on your signal. And then like I was talking about back up here, just make sure that there's no device input set if you want to do it that way. And as I'm going through this, I'm realizing that you could probably just even use this with the tool. So let me show you the tool device. And just route that to the amplitude. And that would probably do the same thing. I guess since we're here, why not try it? Okay, so I'm just going to turn those off for right now. And let's listen to it without it going. Nice. So I'm going to take this and say every time this hits, take the amplitude down as far as you will go. Okay, let's expand that so we can see it, but visually we should see it ducking. We won't have the nice graph like we do over here, but yeah. So either way, this in some ways seems even simpler than using the dynamics device. Boy, I'm trying to think why you wouldn't want to. I guess, you know, if you do want to add some sidechain effects after that. Yeah, I don't know. Just another way to do it. I mean, in Bitwig, there's always a bunch of different ways to achieve kind of the same thing, just like I showed you with the different routing options. Lots of different ways to do it. So that's all I had for you guys today. If you have any questions or comments, please definitely leave them down in the comments below. I had a great question yesterday. It's a good idea for a video, and I think I'll probably be doing that next week. Also, definitely like, subscribe. Everybody says that, but for a reason. It means a big deal to any of us making videos. So if you could take a minute to do that, that would be great. And then again, like I've told you before, bishopswest.com/Bitwig setup. I've got a free guide for you to download there. It's all about accelerating your music making in Bitwig Studio, how to get things up running quickly so you don't have to go jumping through hoops every time you open up Bitwig Studio. Like I said, it's just a free download for you. Just enter your email and I'll send a link to you. And I think that's it. Hope you guys have a great day. If you have any questions, like I said, just leave them below. And I'll talk to you next time. Thanks.